If you're trying to decide what to do in Olympic National Park, you are in the right place. In today's episode, we're going to look at the 10 best things to do in Olympic National Park. Whether you're taking a day trip to Olympic National Park from Seattle or spending a whole week there, this will help you plan out your trip. Hi, I'm James Ian, and I've written numerous guides and published several itineraries for Olympic National Parks. By sharing the top things that you need to do in Olympic National Park, I'm going to help you have the best trip possible. If you're watching this on YouTube, like and subscribe right now. And if you're watching or listening to this somewhere else, please follow my podcast to get the episodes as they come out. Knowing all the things to do at Olympic National Park will help you avoid missing out on some super fun activities and that sinking feeling that you can get when you get back from your trip and have someone tell you about their favorite activity in Olympic National Park and you didn't do it because you didn't even know about it. Now, I've written an article with the top 21 Olympic National Park things to do, but I'm only including the top 12 in this video. In order to narrow the list down, I'm only focusing on summer activities, though there are things to do in the park in winter as well. To see what the other 9 are, you can click on the link in the description box below to read the article on my website, parkscollecting.com. And be sure to stay to the end where I'll be sharing my favorite activity in Olympic National Park. And it's not something that you can do in many national parks. Let's take a look right now.
Welcome to National Parks Collecting with James Ian. He's a national park expert. He's here to help you have the best national parks trips ever. Get tips, discover hidden gems, and learn all you need to know. This is your path to collecting national parks experiences, memories, and maybe even a stamp or two.
Remember to stay to the end where I'll be sharing the number 1 Olympic National Park activity. You'll want to know all about it before you go. What's a fun activity to do in Olympic National Park? This isn't unique to Olympic, but I always love watching wildlife in the parks. Of course, what animals and birds you see in each park can be very different. There's no shortage of wildlife in and around Olympic National Park. One of the highlights are the majestic Roosevelt elk that are often seen from the trails in the Hoh rainforest. Black bears are also common. And if you look down, especially after rain, you might well see large yellow banana slugs. They're kind of cool. I've never seen them before I went to Olympic. And there are plenty of salmon and trout in the rivers. And offshore, there are often seals and marine birds. The sea stacks and the offshore islands at Kayaking and Ruby beaches are nesting grounds for tufted puffins. Olympic National Park is also home to bald eagles, which are often sighted in the trees along the coast. If you want, you can also go whale watching. Olympic National Park is a great place to go. The best time to see the whales swim by the coast are during the main migration seasons, which are April to May and October and November, though you may see them from June through September as well. You can often see whales from the shore. Popular whale watching sites include the Kayaking, Rialto, and Shai Shai beaches. What's a cool activity to do in Olympic National Park? Well, you can gaze at giants. Yes, Olympic National Park is a great place to see giants. Not mythical creatures, of course, but the giants here are no less impressive, maybe even more. There are all kinds of giants to see in Olympic National Park. At the southern end of Third Beach, you look out and you'll see a group of sea stacks and small islands rising dramatically out of the sea. This is called the Giant's Graveyard and provides a stunning backdrop for the southern views. It's also an excellent habitat for resident seals and coastal seabirds. The other giants are the trees. Quinault Valley is often called the Valley of the Giants because of the large number of record-breaking trees found there. There are 5 champion trees, including the largest Sitka spruce in the world, the largest Douglas fir in the world, the largest yellow cedar in the United States, the largest western hemlock in the US, and the largest mountain hemlock in the US. Some of them are deep in the backcountry, so you can't see them, but the world's largest Sitka spruce tree is very accessible and a popular spot on the Scenic Lake Quinault Loop Drive. Not record-breaking, but nonetheless still very impressive, are the towering trees in Ancient Grove, easily seen on an easy loop trail through the forest at Solduck Valley. What's an activity you can do in Olympic if you like to be out in nature but want to break from hiking? Olympic National Park is a great place for biking. The Spruce Railroad Trail is a former railroad turned hiking and biking trail that runs the length of the north shore of Lake Crescent, and it's a great place to cycle. The trail is 11.2 miles round trip out and back, 2.4 miles round trip to Devil's Punch Bowl, which is a popular destination. This is long for a hike, but a great distance for cycling. The trail runs along the bed of an old railroad that was originally built to carry spruce lumber out of the forest to build airplanes in World War I. It wasn't actually finished until after the war, but was then used for commercial logging until the 1950s. One of the highlights are the two railroad tunnels. The McPhee Tunnel was blasted during World War I. This is a popular place to turn around, but you can continue all the way to the West Trailhead. And the second, shorter railroad tunnel, the Daly Rankin Tunnel, is 2.8 miles from the East Trailhead. I mentioned before Devil's Punch Bowl. This is the most popular feature on this trail, and it's a small bay that is semi-closed off from the lake by a long footbridge. The sparkling turquoise water is perfect for a somewhat chilly dip on a warm summer's day. And there are trailheads actually at both ends of the trail and small parking areas there. What's an activity to do in Olympic National Park if you want to get out on the water? There are a couple of places that you can go kayaking in Olympic National Park. Lake Crescent and Lake Quinault are both wonderful places to kayak. You can rent single or tandem kayaks, canoes, and paddleboards at Lake Crescent Lodge. They are first come, first served and can be rented for half a day, which is 4 hours, or an 8-hour full day. There are also half-day, 4-hour rentals at Lake Quinault Lodge on Lake Quinault. Check prices and operating hours on their website, and there's a link in the show notes below. A water activity that's great to do in Olympic National Park in the middle of summer, and if you want to cool off, is to go swimming. You don't want to swim in the ocean. The waters are freezing, the riptides are treacherous, and there's hidden rocks lurking below to get you whenever you least expect it. But not all is lost. Crescent Lake is a great place to swim. Admittedly, the waters are still a little chilly. Okay, cold, but on a hot summer's day, it can be really refreshing. Two popular spots are at Lake Crescent Lodge and Devil's Punch Bowl, reached along the Spruce Railroad Trail. You can also swim in the equally chilly Lake Quinault. Many of the campgrounds along the South Shore Road have day-use areas where you can access the waterfront, even if you're not staying at the campground. And on the North Shore, the July Creek picnic area also has lake access. For something warmer, there's also a swimming pool at the Solduck Hot Springs Resort. Swimming in a lake isn't your only option for getting wet in Olympic National Park. One of my favorite Olympic National Park activities is soaking in hot springs. I love soaking in hot natural mineral spring water, and I love that you can do this in Olympic National Park. The spring water from rain and melting snow seeps through cracks in the sedimentary rocks, and then it mingles with gases from cooling volcanic rocks and then rises to the surface along larger cracks or fissures, creating these natural hot springs. The best hot springs in Olympic National Park are found at Solduck Hot Springs Resort. Although there are several hot springs in Olympic National Park, these are the only ones that are easily accessible. There are 3 mineral hot spring soaking pools, all with different temperatures, plus a cool freshwater pool. There are several 1.5-hour sessions available throughout the day. They are timed, so you do need to enter at a particular time or within a time slot. Now, not everyone raves about these particular hot springs because they are concreted and tiled into pools rather than sort of being less supernatural, but I really love them. I think it's a really nice thing to do there. We are halfway through. Before we look at more amazing things to do in Olympic National Park, if you're watching this on my @National Parks Collecting YouTube channel and you haven't already, please like and subscribe below. It really does help. Next up, national parks are not only beautiful, but they are also educational, and I love this about them. So, what's something to do in Olympic if you want to learn something? Something to do in Olympic National Park is to discover the local history. Olympic National Park is actually filled with fascinating history. You can cycle or hike the Spruce Railroad Trail along what used to be a railway, used to transport logged wood and pass through 2 historic tunnels. Or you can step back in time and discover the pioneering spirit at Kessner Homestead. This site has many of the original buildings of this early homestead, and you can gain a real sense of just how hard life was for the settlers. Of course, Native Americans lived in the area long before that. 8 tribes have traditional associations to lands now in Olympic National Park, and visiting there is an opportunity to learn more about them and their history and their lifestyle. History isn't the only thing that you can learn. Another thing that's great to do in Olympic National Park is to learn all about the temperate rainforest. There are plenty of opportunities to learn about the environments in the park, including the temperate rainforests. There are many ranger-led programs, including talks and hikes. There are also several trails that have interpretive signs along the way explaining about the environment. A great example of this is the Moments in Time trail near Lake Crescent Lodge. This is an easy loop, and there are multiple signs along the way explaining various aspects of the environment and the history. For example, how nurse logs help regenerate the forest, how to identify different trees by their bark, how logging affected the forest, etc. There are also signs giving information about tidal pools at the beaches, so keep an eye out for them. Okay, we are getting near the end, and the next one is really cool. A really fun thing to do in Olympic National Park is to watch salmon leaping. Soon after being born at the bottom of Solduck Falls on the Solduck River, coho and Chinook salmon head downriver and out into the Pacific Ocean, where they spend most of their lives. But after a couple of years roaming around the oceans, they head back to their spawning grounds to lay or fertilize eggs before dying. Kind of cool that they can find the mouth of the river after roaming up and down the coast for a couple of years, yeah? However, in between their spawning ground and the ocean is this powerful 11-foot Salmon Cascades waterfall. One of the most fun things to do, I think, in Olympic National Park is to watch schools of salmon gathering their energy in calm pools at the water below the falls and then making this incredible leap up the waterfall. It's so cool. Now, it is seasonal. March to May and September, October are the best times to see the salmon leaping. And this is at Salmon Cascades, which is on the road to Solduck Falls. So if you're there, then definitely head there and have a look. You don't need to be active to enjoy Olympic National Park. One of my favorite things to do in Olympic National Park is to take a scenic drive. Highway 101 loops around Olympic Peninsula and connects all of the major areas of interest in the national park. For an even more scenic drive, though, head down to Quinault Valley. A 31-mile loop goes around Quinault Lake and along the shores of part of the Quinault River. The road is partially unpaved. Highlights of the drive include the Maple Glade and Kessner Homestead Loop trails in the national park. There are 2 beautiful waterfalls. You can stop and see the world's largest spruce tree. And there's the gorgeous Lake Quinault Lodge that's definitely worth stopping in and enjoying the views there. Plus, of course, the lovely lake and possibly some of the best salmon that you'll ever eat at Salmon House Restaurant, which I highly recommend if you eat fish. What's another great thing to do in Olympic National Park? You probably know by now that I love to hike, so it's not surprising that hiking is one of the absolute best things to do in Olympic National Park. If you can, of course. I know some people have limited mobility, and if you do, there's still plenty to enjoy in the park, and you should definitely go no matter what. But if you can hike, there are plenty of amazing trails in the parks. The hiking is legendary in Olympic National Park, and there is something for everyone who has some mobility. Many of the best views in the national park are found on the trails. There are easy trails through the rainforest, short paths to the beach, and even mostly flat walks at Hurricane Ridge with spectacular mountain views. There are moderate hikes, such as the stunning trail to Solduck Falls. This is the most famous waterfall in the park. Solduck Falls are only 40 feet tall, so they're not the tallest, but they split into 3 or 4 streams, depending on the water volume, and they angle across a ravine due to a 90-degree turn in the river. So they're kind of an unusual shape, and they're surrounded by lush forests, so they are breathtaking. Another popular waterfall that you need to hike to is the 90-foot horsetail waterfall Marymere Falls. This is located near Lake Crescent at the far end of a 1.7-mile lollipop or lasso loop. The beautiful waterfall is the highlight, and there are 2 viewing areas when you get there. There are also longer coastal forest walks, for example, the one to Second Beach or hillier walks on Hurricane Hill, if you want a bit more of a challenge. And if you prefer to challenge yourself even more, there are longer hikes, for example, the Ho River Trail, one of my personal favorites, or there's a scramble along the coastal path south of Third Beach that you access from the beach that will really get your blood pumping. You need to climb up rope ladders and all sorts of things. It's fun, but definitely a challenge. So, what's the number one thing to do in Olympic National Park? So far, we've looked at 11 amazing activities, and I hope now that you're getting a real sense of what to do in the park. There's just one more left. Stay to the end to hear my absolute favorite thing to do in Olympic. But before we do, a quick recap. There are hikes, scenic drives, learning about history, learning about geology. There's water activities, even watching salmon jumping up a waterfall. You may be thinking, that all sounds amazing, but how on earth do I coordinate all those activities into an itinerary that actually makes sense for me and my family? You'll have seen by now that there's just a lot that goes into planning a trip to Olympic National Park. There's so much to see and do. But the park is large. There are 4 distinct ecosystems. The drive times between the sections of the park and the different activities are long. The season is short because it rains so much most of the year. And the park is popular, so it can be crowded. With all of this, timing is key, and it can be really difficult to know what to do and when. That's exactly why I created super detailed itineraries for Olympic National Park. There are 1, 2, 3, and 4 day options, and you can find a link to the Olympic itineraries at the top of the description box below. But let's just go through them very quickly right now. The itineraries include an overview of the park and some useful general information and tips so that you're fully oriented to the park. Then there's a detailed schedule for each day, and then each activity is broken down into all of the information that you'll need for your trip. There's hiking and driving descriptions and maps. There's alternate activities in the same part of the park if you're traveling with people who want to do different things. There's tips, timings, and more. Without this itinerary, people often find themselves struggling to coordinate their time to be in the right place at the right time to see and do all they want in the time that they have. The itineraries will help take away the overwhelm. You'll know exactly what to do and when and how to connect them all in a way that makes the most sense to be in the right place at the right time so that you don't need to worry about missing out on the highlight of the park or stress about how to put everything that you want together into a schedule that makes the most sense. Just follow the link in the show notes below. Now, as promised, what's my number one thing to do in Olympic National Park? My favorite activity is tide pooling. It's so much fun and not something that you can do at many of the national parks. What's tide pooling? Tide pools are created when water gets trapped between the rocks when the tides go out. These pools are home to all sorts of creatures, and exploring them is one of the top things to do in Olympic National Park, with kids or without. Bright green anemones, there's purple and ochre-coloured sea stars that pile up on top of each other. There's sharp barnacles and mollusks clinging to the side of rocks. You can see tiny little hermit crabs scuttle around the bottom of the shallow pools in their borrowed shells. They're like these hidden worlds that are teeming with life. It's very cool. Popular beaches for tide pooling include Kayaking Beach 4, Ruby Beach, and Rialto Beach. The tide pools are best explored about 30 minutes before the low tide to allow maximum time there, so always check a tide chart when you start planning your trip so that you can plan your activities around the low tide. If you want help planning your trip, check the links in the description box below. There's a bunch of planning and booking resources that you can use to plan and book your trip, and keep watching my videos to get even more help so that you can have the best national parks vacation ever. And if you want to get notified about the next episode, subscribe and click below.